This car has been on quite the journey since I first bought it. It looks and performs like a completely different car. Because of that, I've been driving it a lot more frequently, which has made me notice a few shortcomings in the interior. Namely in the audio department, where I have almost no control over what I'm listening to, and nearly every speaker in the car is actually blown. We're gonna start fixing this, beginning this week with a new head unit, giving us the ability to choose a song and tell which speakers are blown a little bit more easily. It's very easy to spend a lot of money upgrading your car's audio system. For my goals with this car, it's not worth it for me to spend thousands of dollars upgrading the audio system in the car. So we're gonna go with a more budget-oriented option that still is a lot better than the stock stuff. This episode's gonna mostly focus on the head unit, and we'll deal with the speakers in a later episode. If you've never done something like this for your car, you might be wondering how you know what the wiring looks like and what all to get. Basically, there's two ways you can do this. If you really like a challenge, you can wire it yourself and make your own wiring harness. Or if you want an easier option, there are sites like the one I purchased mine through, which you enter your car in and they'll sell you all the wiring that you need to complete the install. These are mostly pre-made harnesses that you're gonna basically just need to connect a few wires to get working properly. I got all the parts for mine through a combination of Crutchfield and Enfig. Believe it or not, but the most important thing, in my opinion, that you get from them is these keys that allow you to remove the stock radio. There's 4 holes you need to insert these into, and then the radio comes right out and you can undo the harnesses behind it. Without these, you're probably gonna break something. You can get it out though, it's just not gonna be pretty. They make kits for either single-DIN or double-DIN for the B5. This car came with Bose Symphony, making it easier to install a double-DIN. This worked out really well for me, because I wanted something that was a lot less busy than the plethora of buttons that is the factory radio in this car. Touchscreen double-DIN radios can look really clean in an interior, so long as they're not the size of a TV. That's personal preference though. If you like it, do it. For me, I really don't like the look of giant screens in my car. Let's talk about wiring for the head unit, which may be something you're worried about if you've never done it before. If it's your first time, just know it's not nearly as bad as you would think. If you order the harnesses, you're gonna have 4 pieces that you're gonna need to connect. The head unit itself, the antenna harness, the head unit power harness, and the preamplifier harness. I like to start with the antenna harness by plugging the auxiliary input into the radio itself. Everything is generally labeled when you buy it as a kit, so it's really plug and play. The only other wire we care about on the antenna adapter is the blue power wire. We're going to connect that to the matching blue wire on the 16-pin power harness. That's the black one that comes in the kit, and you can think of that one as supplying power to the entire head unit, and the red one supplies the audio. As far as connecting these wires, there is a general approach I take that I think is pretty useful. If I'm unsure of 2 wires that I'm connecting, I'll use electrical tape just until I test it, and then I'll go back and either solder the wire or use a bunt connector. Wiring is usually different for every car you do this to, so that's why I like to use electrical tape at the very beginning and then go back and make things permanent. In the footage, you'll notice these connections change from electrical tape to bunt connectors. That's because I'm testing as I'm installing. You won't have to do that step unless you feel like it, since I'm explaining the right connections after I've tested them. Just wanted to quickly clarify why the connections were changing in the video itself. We've wired up power to the antenna through the black connector. Now we're going to wire the power to the head unit itself. We're going to do this by connecting 4 different wires coming out of the back of the head unit to the black harness that the antenna is also powered by. All we're doing here is matching colors and labels if they're there. The 4 you want to match are yellow for constant 12-volt power, red for ignition controlled power, black for a ground, and orange for your illumination control. We're done with what I call the power harness, and now we're moving on to the audio harness, which is the red one. The only wire you need to connect here is the blue wire with the white line through it. This is the amplifier turn-on wire. This car has a factory amplifier in its system. That means we're not going to wire audio directly to speakers. We're going to wire into the amplifier and let the amplifier dish out the audio to the various speakers. The red harness has 4 preamplifier cords for audio, which we're going to plug directly into the corresponding colors on the back of the head unit. This is the order you're going to match if you're curious. Once these are in, that's all the wiring we need to do. So you can go ahead and test the system if you're doing that, and then rewire it if you want to make things more permanent. The harnesses coming out of the car fit into these adapters without trouble, except there are a few unused ones that come in the factory system. So long as you have audio, everything's wired properly, and you don't have to worry about those unused adapters. The old system was a little bit less efficient than this head unit. Now we're going to talk about how we're going to get this to look good. I ordered 2 different faceplates for this, one of which was $2 and came from Crutchfield. That's the one on the bottom. I wasn't too sure about the Crutchfield finish, so I ordered the one from Enfig, which is the one up top. I like the look of this one a lot better, so we're going to go with this one. The Crutchfield one functionally works great, but it would need a little modification to work for a double din. I would say the Enfig plate is a little bit higher quality, and it has a much more accurate to OEM finish on the plastic. Plus, it attaches magnetically on the off chance we want to wire additional speakers to this head unit. The Crutchfield one said that it was a single-use install, which was a little strange to me. Once the wiring was done, all that was left to do was put on the faceplate and the harness itself, and put the radio in place. We'll look at the results in a little more detail towards the end of the video. For now, all I can say is it is a much simpler design than the factory radio. We went from like 30 old buttons to around 3, which really modernizes things. I did notice something while installing this radio. The panel with the hazard switch on my car is plasti-dipped. It's wooden underneath, and I only noticed it because it's peeling, and that's an eyesore in the interior. In an ideal world, I'll be able to find the plasti-dip that made it so close to OEM, but for now, what I'm gonna do is wrap it to match the rest of the carbon in the interior. This was a while ago, before we got sidetracked by wrapping the entire car, but we were in the process of re-wrapping all of the interior in a gloss finish carbon vinyl as opposed to the matte finish carbon vinyl that we had. The gloss looks a lot better, and we finally have more, so we're gonna do that today. This is the first trim piece I did it on, but I also ended up doing it for each one of the interior trim pieces on the doors. That way it matches with the piece in the front. I'll link the wrap in the description. I really enjoy the finish. Improving parts of your car is always tremendously satisfying. Rewrapping this interior trim has been a long time coming, and it honestly makes the interior loads nicer than it was. But it also ties into a topic that I struggle with on a daily basis that I think we should talk about. The quest for perfection. I'll explain my feelings on it, and hopefully it makes sense. This car, for me, symbolizes a lot of learning. There's a lot of skills that I'm getting from this car that I'm doing and practicing for the first time. At the same time, I want this car to be as nice as possible for you, the viewer, and for me, the person who actually drives the car. Straight up, I want the car to be as good as I can possibly get it. But it's really hard to find a balance between searching and redoing parts on a car over and over and over again until they're perfect, and realizing that this is a learning process and it's your first time doing it, so there's no possible way that it ever can be perfect. In other words, when you're learning something, I'm starting to believe that perfection is merely a concept. It's easy to find something when you're looking specifically for it, and if you're searching for perfection, you're innately going to be looking for any mistakes, and when you're learning, you're bound to make mistakes because that's how you learn. To be honest, I've been struggling to accept that with my first attempt at vinyl wrapping now that I've been looking at the car more in the sun. I'm noticing a lot of mistakes, which makes sense since it was my first wrap ever, and I'm learning. I am definitely going to be my worst critic, and in my mind, this car needs a lot of work still before I'll be happy with how it looks on the exterior. I don't think it's healthy to constantly chase perfection and berate yourself for not being there, especially when you're learning. So rather than chasing perfection for this car, mentally, I am chasing improvement. I will happily chase improvement as long as it takes for me to actually be happy with how this car is. Every time we make an improvement to this car, no matter how small, this project as a whole gets better. Today we're fixing a few mistakes I made on the wrap that hinder this car's overall quality, and they're all on the doors. From a technical standpoint, the first door I'm redoing didn't need an improvement. It did need an improvement, however, because there was a gash from something falling and cutting through the wrap. I figured if I was already redoing the other doors, I might as well do this one too. The next door we're redoing is the first door that I ever attempted. I was so early in the stages of learning that I ended up having a tear in the vinyl that I left specifically because I wanted to come back and redo it when I had a little bit more practice. Now is that time, and I'm confident that we can get this door so much better than it was before. The first two doors also ended up lifting a little bit around the door blade itself. This was a technique error that I had fixed for the second two doors, so it's something that we're also going to improve when we redo this. The lifting on the door blade was the worst around the third door that we're going to be fixing now. It's going to look so much better when this is all done. These were the cosmetic issues that I wanted to improve first to upgrade the overall quality of the build. We've still got a lot of things to fix that we're going to be doing in the future, including the door jambs and the innards. Since the car is more than drivable now, we need to continue our logging on E85. We're getting an E85 tune from Motoza installed on the car, and we're doing some drivability logs today on E85 to make sure that the car runs and has proper fuel when we're just driving around town. Once the tuning process is complete, you can expect a full video going through the entire process and my thoughts on which octane I think this car runs best on. This car is getting better and better with every week, and I am getting more and more excited to drive the car. In the near future, we'll continue the audio upgrades by replacing the blown speakers, and the next big goal for this car is going to be a full suspension rebuild, and that's going to start a lot sooner than you might think. Hopefully you're as excited as I am. Thank you so very much for watching. I really appreciate your support, and it means the world to me how much you guys are enjoying these videos. It blows my mind, but by the time this video comes out, we will have hit 2,000 subscribers, which is a goal I never thought I'd be able to get to. So seriously, thank you. Special thanks to everybody who's been with the channel since the beginning. Your support really does mean a lot to me. If you enjoyed the video, learned something, or want to see more, consider dropping a like and subscribing. It's the best way you can support me and my channel. Either way, I'll see you guys in the next episode. Thank you so much. Have a wonderful day.